What if I told you that the royal family is quietly shifting its power, and Queen Camilla's future role could be on the line? Behind closed doors, something major is happening, and it's not what anyone expected. Stick around, because this could change everything you thought you knew about the monarchy. The announcement at Kensington Palace came out of nowhere. Prince William, standing tall with his wife Catherine and their children by his side, made a declaration that no one expected. The room fell silent as he introduced Princess Charlotte in a way that made her future role in the monarchy seem inevitable. There was something almost electric in the air, a sense that history was being written before our very eyes. And while the focus was on Charlotte, something else was happening. A power shift. Prince William and Catherine were starting to take centre stage in a way that made the monarchy feel fresh, dynamic, and ready for change. What stood out most was the absence of King Charles and Queen Camilla. This wasn't just a missed appearance, it was a symbolic moment. The two of them, once the main figures at the heart of the royal family, seemed to fade into the background. King Charles, in particular, looked exhausted, as if the weight of the crown was beginning to bear down on him in ways he hadn't anticipated. Meanwhile, Prince William and Catherine, in their calm, steady manner, were taking on more responsibility. Their appeal, not just in the UK, but around the world, was undeniable. People were starting to rally behind them, their modern approach to the monarchy resonating with the public in a way that King Charles and Camilla couldn't seem to match. As if on cue, Princess Charlotte started to take her first steps into royal duties, something no one expected to happen so soon. In one simple moment, the future of the royal family began to feel not just inevitable, but also inevitable in a new way. Charlotte wasn't just another royal child. She was a future monarch, one who was already being groomed for the spotlight. The public could see it too. Charlotte's role seemed to be growing almost overnight, to a point where some started speculating she might rival Prince George in terms of influence. And just like that, the power dynamics of the royal family began to shift in a way that felt both subtle and profound. William and Catherine, now fully aware of their growing influence, started to act on it. William, once seen as the dutiful son, now seemed more like the monarch in waiting, more comfortable with the weight of that future role. Catherine, for her part, was no longer just the Duchess. She was a quiet force, a steady hand guiding the royal family toward its future, balancing tradition with the needs of a rapidly changing world. But while William and Catherine were stepping forward, things weren't so simple behind the scenes. The absence of Charles and Camilla at such a crucial moment wasn't just a coincidence. Camilla especially seemed to feel the tension in the air. Once the woman who had fought to reshape her image and secure her place as queen consort, Camilla now found herself overshadowed by the new generation. Her influence was slipping away, and she wasn't ready to let go. The palace, once her domain, was no longer fully under her control. Behind closed doors, Camilla began calling meetings, hoping to restore order, to remind everyone of her role and her hard-won position. But even her closest allies in the palace weren't so certain anymore. In many ways, Camilla was fighting a battle she couldn't win. King Charles, exhausted from the demands of his role, seemed increasingly distant. He wasn't stepping up to support her in the way she expected. Some palace insiders even whispered that Charles had slowly begun stepping back, ceding more power to William, who was already preparing to take on the mantle of monarch. Catherine, too, had her role in all of this. She was emerging not just as a supportive wife, but as a strategic mind in her own right. Her work behind the scenes, gauging public sentiment, and shaping the monarchy's direction, was becoming more visible. She wasn't just playing a ceremonial role, she was actively steering the royal family toward a more modern, relatable future. Even her charity work, especially her focus on children's hospitals, was becoming an extension of her broader vision for the monarchy. But as the new generation rose, Camilla's struggle to maintain control became even more apparent. Her efforts to assert herself within the royal family were being met with resistance. Even her closest supporters within the palace seemed to be shifting their loyalty to William and Catherine. The more Camilla tried to regain her grip, the more it seemed like the monarchy was evolving without her, and perhaps even in spite of her. With Princess Charlotte's growing prominence, the shift in the royal family's dynamic couldn't be ignored. Charlotte, still so young, was already beginning to take on responsibilities, learning from the best examples around her. George, always in the background, still remained quiet and observant, but Charlotte was emerging as the natural leader of the new generation. It wasn't just about her royal duties, it was about the future of the monarchy, and Charlotte was being shaped for a role that no one could deny. As the royal family underwent this generational shift, it became clear that the monarchy, long defined by its old traditions and rigid structures, was being reshaped for a new world. The future wasn't just about holding on to old ways, it was about embracing change, adapting to new challenges, and, most importantly, staying connected to the public. William and Catherine, with Charlotte leading the charge, were preparing to take the monarchy in a direction that no one had seen coming. As the royal family's evolution continued, one thing became clear. Camilla was facing a struggle to maintain her influence within the changing landscape. Despite her best efforts to assert herself, the tide of public opinion and the palace's inner workings were shifting in favour of the younger generation. For Camilla, it must have felt like the walls were closing in. Once the outsider, she had worked tirelessly to secure her position as Queen Consort. But now, with Princess Charlotte stepping into the limelight, her carefully crafted image seemed to be crumbling. Even her closest advisors were no longer standing by her side. This was no small battle. The royal family wasn't just about power, it was about public perception, and public support for William, Catherine, and their children was soaring. The monarchy was no longer just a symbol of tradition, it was evolving into something that felt more accessible, more relatable, and that undoubtedly was a threat to Camilla's carefully guarded position. She was no longer just a queen consort in the traditional sense. She was now part of a power struggle for the very future of the monarchy. For King Charles, the situation was even more complicated. His health and the weight of his crown were becoming increasingly difficult to bear. He had assumed the throne with the expectation of leading a monarchy that remained true to its roots. But the reality was different. As his energy waned, so did his ability to assert authority over the shifting dynamics within his own family. Charles, weary from the demands of his role, seemed content to step back, leaving his son, William, to take charge. This gradual retreat from leadership wasn't just a personal choice. It was a reflection of the changing times. A monarch whose time was fading in favour of a younger, more vibrant leadership that promised to take the monarchy into the future. As the new power couple in the royal family, William and Catherine were seizing the opportunity to redefine what it meant to be royalty in the 21st century. Their approach, based on public connection and transparency, was breathing new life into the monarchy. They weren't just monarchs in waiting, they were already setting the stage for a future where their children, especially Princess Charlotte, would take on a central role. And that's where the true tension lay, in the clash of generations. Camilla, King Charles, and the old guard, holding on to their traditional roles, were losing their grip in the face of the modern monarchy that William and Catherine were shaping. The royal family's future was no longer tied to old traditions, but to a new era where public trust, modern values, and a dynamic, hands-on approach to leadership would define success. As Princess Charlotte took on more duties and showed her natural leadership abilities, it was clear that the monarchy's next chapter would be a completely different story. a story that didn't rely on old structures of power, but on the promise of a brighter, more inclusive future. The future of the royal family was being written by a new generation, one where Prince William, Catherine, and their children would become the faces of change. So, what do you think about the royal family's shifting dynamics? Do you think Camilla can still hold on to her position, or is it all but over for the old guard? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. If you found this as fascinating as I did, make sure to give this video a like, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more royal updates. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and adventure aloud.